Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about changing the cell in the Synergy Chlorinator. Now we're going to be changing it for two reasons. One of them is if you need to replace the cell, and the other one is if you need to clean the cell. It is a self-cleaning cell, and what that means is they reverse the polarity in here, the direction of the current, and that flakes off the build-up of calcium. Now that doesn't mean that it's going to be completely free. Even self-cleaning ones still get built up sometimes. So we're going to talk about how to remove it from here. Now you can see I've got some cables here attached, and I'll talk about those as well. If you do need to figure out what cell it is that you're replacing, the first place to look is actually on this cable. On here you can see this one that says a 40 gram output. So that is a 40 gram cell. And at 25 will say 25, and the 20 gram says 20 gram on there. So there are three types. So there's the XI, and this also includes the XI chlorinator, which is a 20 gram one. It includes the NI and the VI. The NI and the VI, the difference is the VI is the premium chlorinator that actually has probes. Now I've only got one probe attached here so you can see the difference, but we'll talk about that in a moment as well. So this is the cell. The 40 gram cell does have bigger cell inside of here. These plates or blades in here are larger to cater for the 40 grams. So this is the bigger 40 gram one. Just quickly, briefly, you can see the flow here. The water comes in here, it comes up over the top, back over the cell, producing the chlorine, and comes back out through here. So to remove it, the first thing we need to do is we need to make sure everything's turned off. So make sure all your equipment's turned off, and then you can start to remove it. Removing this one here, you do need to hold in that little clip. So there's a little clip on there that you do need to hold in to remove that. Now removing these here from the top, okay, removing your probes, you can see they do connect to the chlorinator as well, but they're pretty simple to do. We just take this green bit here and we just undo that. We just twist it, we undo it, and we can lift the whole thing out. So do be careful with these because they are expensive to replace if you need to, so you don't want to be damaging them. Right. So once that's out, set it aside. You won't want those in when you're going to be putting this in for cleaning. So that's what we do for the VI. So that's for the VI, removing those. If you don't have those and all you have is this here, this green, then that's a little bit different. This one here is an NI. Okay, the one with the probes are the VI. Ones without the probes are the NI. So if you have this on here, you can just leave that. If you do need to replace it for any reason, it's just a screwdriver in the top and turn to remove those. Okay, so how do we take the cell out? Okay, so the first thing we're going to do to remove this, as I said, remove the probes if you need to. If you've got the VI, remove the probes, put them out of the way. You can also take this entire thing out to make it easier if you wish. So this what I'm doing now is not essential, but you can remove it from the pipework and take it somewhere else. So it can be useful if you've got a tight spot to work in and it's really hard to get to. So you can take it out, remove it, and do this somewhere else, like I'm doing right here on a bench. So whether or not you do that, you remove the probes. The next thing you need to do is just turn this lock nut here. Once you've turned that, rotated that enough, you'll find you can now remove the cell. If the cell is stuck, okay, it can be really hard to remove that cell sometimes. If you try and pick it up, it can be difficult to do. So what you want to do is careful with the cord, but you can see I've just popped that over out of the way. Now you can take that all the way off the cord, or now we have this to open. Now if you can just zoom in on this, I want to show you here. So what we're looking at here, this cell can only go in one way. This bit here must line up for that to work. Now this one's a little bit looser so I can move it out, but you can see that will only go in if it lines up. Okay, if it lines up on there, that's the only way that this cell is going to go in. So when you go to put your cell back in again, you need to make sure that lines up. Now that, as you can see, is where the break is between the cell and the casing. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you how to open this up. Okay, so now we're going to separate these. Now if they're really hard to separate, which sometimes cells can be, regardless of the brand, you may find that. Now what I do, and you got to be careful doing this, I use a Stanley knife and I put it in between the two. Now they can be really tight. They can be really tightly squeezed together. As you can see a bit more around this side, they are pretty tight on this side. So getting a Stanley knife in there can be a little bit tricky. Ultimately I'm aiming to get in a screwdriver, but if the screwdriver doesn't fit yet, I'll start with a Stanley knife. And being careful, because if you put a Stanley knife in here and you give it a twist, you don't want to break that off, certainly because it could be flying in all sorts of directions. So be very careful putting it in there, and very gentle if you're giving it a twist to open it up. But what I'll do is I'll open it up and I'll work my way around. The other thing you're being careful with if you're using a Stanley knife, not to slip cut yourself, obviously, but also you don't want to scratch or damage any of the plastic here as well. So be super careful if you use a Stanley knife. Sorry, a Stanley knife, yes. So be super careful if you use a Stanley knife. Then work your way around, and if you start getting enough space, then you'll be able to stick your screwdriver in there. You'll be able to stick your screwdriver in there, and a gentle rotation can usually help pop that out. So, and working your way around. Once again, if you need to twist too hard, you might damage in here. So you might want to put it on an angle, slide it around. There are different things you can do. Just be looking careful not to scratch or damage anything. And then when you've got enough air inside there, you will find with a little bit more of a wiggle, it will come out. And then you'll be able to clean the cell. Now you've got the cell out. Okay, now we can put this in the cleaning fluid. Now it is possible to use a diluted hydrochloric acid, and it is recommended you do 1 in 10, so 1 part hydrochloric acid to 10 parts of water if you are going to soak this. And then you put this in. Do not go, so try to avoid hitting the bottom of this, because then you'll be hitting then you might be putting your O-ring in it. You don't want to do that, so the acid will eat away at your O-ring, and you also don't want to go any further up because you don't want to be touching any of the electronics. Leave this cable on here, there's no need to take that off. You can use this end to remove it, and if you want this out of the way, you can do that. So resting it so that it doesn't go any deeper than this, and none of the bits above here get inside that acid or cleaning fluid. That'll sit there, and you can leave that overnight if need be. The longer you leave it in the acid and the stronger the acid is, the more it's going to eat away at what's at the coating on these cells as well. So only do this if you really must, to clean off a serious build-up of calcium on these plates. But however, if you are just simply changing your cell, this is the process to take it out. When you buy a new cell, it'll look just like this. It'll come with the cable. So if you are doing this to replace the cell, that's what you'll get. You'll get all of this. So you'll get the cell and the cable already attached to plug straight in. So pulling the old one out, putting this one directly in its place. It will come with these ready set up for the XI or NI. If you do have a VI, you'll need to change your probes. So once again, just putting the screwdriver in the top of those and turning that around to remove it, and then putting the probes in. So now whether you're replacing it or you've just cleaned it, then you'll be able to put this back in again. Now to put it back in, make sure you put your locking nut back on. Okay, we will need that in a moment. And then we need the cell casing, remembering to line up those two sections. So remember, you just need to line that up on there. When that's lined up in place, the cell should slide in nice and easily. And then we put the cover over the top of it, the locking nut. If you do damage your locking nut, there are replacements for those. and doing that up. Hand tight should be all you need to do that. It shouldn't leak from there. It is a good idea to also put some silicone grease on that O-ring. Now I didn't have any on me, I just realized, but whenever you've got an O-ring, if you've exposed the O-ring to change something, remove it, it's always a really good idea to put a bit of extra, just about a pea-sized amount of silicone grease, and put that around your O-ring, all O-rings. If I had a bigger O-ring, such as on top of a cartridge filter, then I would probably use 3 times that. So, but for an O-ring of about this size, you would want to use probably about a pea-sized amount. You could possibly go a little bit more as well. Adding that to your O-ring, put the top on, and then that. And remember, if you've got probes, if you don't have probes, you don't need to do this. They will already be in place. But if you do have probes, then the probes simply go back into the hole on top, and then you screw this down so that it doesn't leak. Making sure we then plug that end back in underneath the chlorinator, as well as plugging this in as well, so that your chlorinator and your probes will work. If you have removed the whole thing, put it back into its place. Remember, these do have O-rings. There are little red O-rings on there on both sides, so you might want to put a little bit of silicone grease on that. Screwing them back up again. Silicone grease on your O-ring. Doing those up nice and tight. And there it is. That is how you replace or change your cell in your Insynergy chlorinator. Then that's also how you do the probes. So if you've got any questions, let us know. Otherwise, hopefully this video has been very helpful, and you get many hours and years of enjoyment from your pool.